All right. We're back with another Formula One video, and today we're going to be talking about a question that I see a lot, or like people who might not be fans of F1 might think or might have questions about, and it's is Formula One fair, or like how fair is Formula One? So quick answer, it's not fair at all, but I'll dive into it. So Formula One, it's like, so many, I guess, people are used to like American sports leagues like the NFL or the NBA or the MLB, or well, the NFL and the NBA, where like the worst team, it's like not out of the question that the worst team can beat the best team, if they just like have a good day or something like that, or you know, the worst team can rebuild itself to be the best team through like a draft and stuff. But with the NFL or with Formula One, it's not. It's completely different. So if I were to explain it like a so like people that watch like American sports leagues would understand, it's almost like Alabama football, now that NIL is a thing, Alabama football in the same league as like a mid-major, or like a, you know, like a Fresno State, or like a, you know, one of the smaller schools. It's like them both competing in the SEC, and that's just like, that's how it is in Formula One. But in Formula One, it's not collegiate, it's professional, so it's very unfair. It's actually more fair now than it used to be, because back then there used to not be a salary cap like the MLB. So like, let's just say the bottom teams in Formula One would be spending, can't remember the number, but it was probably around 150 million a year. But the top teams like Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull would spend up to like $550 million a year. So like, extremely unfair, and there's like no cap on it. So and there still is, like, in Formula One, there's no way that, so in Formula One, there's the top four teams usually. It's Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, and McLaren. These teams will most likely always be at the front no matter what. Like, there might be like occasional like super rare seasons where they're not in the top four, but normally it's the norm that they're in the top four every year. And then these other teams basically have no chance. They're basically, it's to the point where the top Formula One teams send their junior prospects to the lower teams, so they can develop and eventually get promoted up to the top team. So it's just like, it's like a broken system where, like, you know, the bottom teams like Williams, Sauber, Audi, you know, Cadillac, and like all these smaller brand Haas, all these smaller brand teams will never ever make it up to the top step of Formula One, because one, their drivers will all leave to go to the top teams if they're good enough, and two, they still don't have the money and the resources, I guess, that the top teams do. And so how Formula One works is that every year the number one place team gets like the most money. So like, it's actually ridiculous. Like, you would think that like, to make it fair, that the lowest team would get the most money out of the prize pool, but the highest finishing team gets the most money, then goes down. So like, you would think that there's no chance that a low, like a back marker, which we like to call the bottom teams in Formula One, would ever make it to the top. It is actually more fair, I'd say. Like last year, I think it was the most fair we've seen in a while, because you would occasionally see, the bottom teams like outperforming the top teams, not over the course of a season, but definitely at a good number, more of a number of races than it used to be. Like they were closer, like instead of being like, this is an actual example, instead of being 2 seconds off the pace last season, they were like maybe like 7/10 off the pace, which is really good. So that was the most fair we've seen last year, but this year it's probably going to go back to the same as before. But yeah, I see a lot of people have questions, or like they're like, oh, is Formula One fair? Oh, it's pay to win also. If you don't have 3 million plus and start driving when you're 5 years old, you're never gonna make it. So your parents have to be rich, or you have to have a lot of sponsors, and you can essentially, it's not like the NFL or NBA or MLB where you can be poor and the talent will find you. That's just not the case. You have to have money and you have to have skill, but there have been bad drivers who just can pay their way into Formula One. Like, it's that type of sport. For example, a lot of people like to call this, there's a driver in Formula One right now that his dad is the owner of the team, and he has a seat, and a lot of people say that he's only in the seat because of his dad, and that's part of it. Yeah, that's definitely true. He's only in the seat because of his dad, but that just makes it different, because I guess people living in America or who only watch like NFL, MLB, NFL, or MLB, NBA are like, well, the Cleveland Browns can theoretically be back like as the best team in the NFL if they just draft right, pick up good free agents and stuff like that. And that's definitely possible, but in Formula One, it's just like a rinse repeat. The top teams will take the best drivers from the bottom teams. They have more money to spend on the cars, because it's not just performance based on the drivers. It's like more about the cars than the drivers, if I'm being honest. Because the best driver, like Max Verstappen, would not finish in the top, definitely not finish in the top 5 in the slowest car. I mean, that's just how it is. Like, the most of the margin between teams is the car. So like, but the driver does make up a lot of it, like the slim margins. Like, let's just say, like last year, Max Verstappen did not have the fastest car, but he almost won the championship. So that just shows you that drivers do make a difference, but Max Verstappen is not winning the championship, quite frankly, not finishing anywhere near the top 6 really, if he was in a Haas or something, or like a Sauber. So that's just, it's very unfair. These bottom teams are basically just turning into junior teams. So that's why people like to call, there's the top 4 teams in F1, and that's Formula One, and then there's the midfield and the back marker, so the other 7 teams, and that's called F1 1.5. So fans do fans make their own championship of just the midfield and back market cars, so the rest of the 7 teams, apart from the top 4 teams. So yeah, it's just a little summary is that yes, F1 is not fair. You know, it's a pay to win sport. There's really no chance of a top team really falling out, or like unless they lose like a lot of financial. It's all about money. So there have been a few like examples and stuff. So let's just say Williams used to be a top team in like the 90s and 80s, but they're a family-owned team, and as Formula One became more expensive, their budget, they were spending more than they were getting back. So slowly they started falling all the way back until they were like the worst team. And now they're finally trying to climb their way back up, but it's gonna be hard. But yes, like Williams was a top team in the 90s, but they lost a lot of financial backing and they became the worst team. So that's an example. Another example, a good example, is Red Bull. Red Bull entered the sport 2002, maybe 2000s. In the 2000s, Red Bull entered the sport. They're an example of a team that started with nothing. So like they were absolute baloney, and now they climbed their way up to be, you know, fighting for the world championship. So there are occasions, but it really takes a lot of time. And if you don't use your money efficiently, then especially if you're a midfield team, then you have no chance of even fighting, you know, close to the front. A good example of using money efficiently to, you know, try to even it out is hold on. Oh shoot. To even it out is Force India. They're no longer in Formula One, but they were a very small market team. But they were able to like use their money efficiently to still fight, you know, close to the front in Formula One. So that was very good from them. But on the contrast, in that same season that I'm talking about, this is probably like 2020, McLaren they're all obviously, you know, one of the top teams in Formula One, one of the most historic teams in Formula One. They in 2020 they were an example of a team that had a lot of money but didn't use their money efficiently, so they were fighting at the back. So those are examples of why you have to use your money efficiently. So even you could have all the money, but if you don't spend it wisely or make good decisions, you know, there's also a chance that you fall behind, or you do really good with the small amount of money you have and fight at the front or close to the front. But on like the norm is that, you know, top 4 teams and then the rest, and there's really no chance of, you know, fighting consistently. I'd say like year after year to fight at the front is not, you know, is not really, I guess, achievable for a small market team. You know, they might have a good couple years or something, but really nothing like, especially not fighting for world championships. But when I'm talking about fighting at the front, I'm talking about, you know, fighting for top points positions, like fifth and up. But yeah, and even rarely would they ever be like, actually never, they will be fighting for a championship, the small market teams. So yep, I hope that answers y'all's questions, or well, you know, questions that people may see about Formula One and the legitimacy. So like, in that case, like, it does make it, like, really hard to root for teams and drivers. So, like, basically, you know, if your favorite team's like Haas, that's just very unfortunate. Like, you know, oh yeah, so I just like giving examples, but you know, the top teams, so like Ferrari, Mercedes, McLaren, Red Bull, if they get, their goal is, so this is like the discrepancy. This is the same league, by the way. This is not like Division 1, Division 2, NBA versus college, or anything like that. If the top 4 teams, so McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull, if Max Verstappen gets 6th place, that is absolutely terrible. Like, if he gets 6th place, or let's just say a McLaren driver last year, they were the best team. If they get 6th place, 5th place, even 4th place, even for the McLaren car last year at some of the races, that's like a loss. But if like a Sauber or a Haas or Williams got, you know, 8th, that's like a huge win. Or like, even if they get at 10th, that's like a win. But like the top 4 teams, you know, a Ferrari or well, I don't know, because I don't know what the hell they're doing, but you know, McLaren or Max Verstappen, for them to get, you know, 5th, and that's just like a terrible result. Just shows like how different it is. And you know, it wouldn't be all too crazy, but this is the same league, this is the same sport. It's not like different divisions or anything like college, or you know, like D1 versus D2 or anything, or like mid-major, you know, versus SEC school. This is like the same, like they're all competing, and like there's only 11 teams, you know, so it's just, I don't know, I just think it's kind of crazy, like for someone that might just be like watching the sport, or like trying to watch a sport for the first time. They'll probably be like, well, there's like no chance. So yeah, not impossible, but very rare do we see one of the top 4 teams fall out of the top 4, and you know, a team outside the top 4 come into the top 4, and actually never you see them ever fighting for a world championship. So yeah, that sums it up. I'll be making another video in a couple days about Australia predictions, because the season starts this weekend. So we'll come back to see if that's right. And yeah.